大家好，欢迎收看今天的全球瞭望，我是郭崇伦。受到网络普及的影响，传统的选战现在已经演变成网络大战。台北市长柯文哲去年就是因为善用网络行销，得到乡民的支持，赢得选战。柯文哲的成功经验也让各党的候选人争相仿效。网络战的重要性似乎已经成为打赢选战不可或缺的一环。请看我们的报道。
用网络拼选战在全球蔚为风潮，这股旋风也吹到了台湾。从去年底的9合1选举就能看出端倪。也
可以用手机去投票，那么台北市将会成为世界上第一个用手机就可以投票的城市。
和以往文宣 PK 战大不同，台北市长柯文哲锁定年轻族群，认真经营社群媒体和网军把钢筋。
在这里公布还公布网站的网址，其实最大的目的是希望大家网络乡民你的翻高调，要透过网络的方式去拜托大家传播，
把政策牛肉统统放上网，供选民发表意见，及时互动。柯 P 竞选团队善用网络行销，大打网络战，推陈出新的做法，果然如愿获得选民青睐。柯 P 网站太成功，除了候选人争相效法，行政院更邀来柯 P 网络军师亲自传授官员和网军交手秘技。
我们也要设法在实体跟网络世界之间，加一道桥梁。
眼看2016总统大选步步逼近，民进党总统参选人蔡英文对网络战更是格外重视。访美行直接拜访旧金山的脸书总部，亲自请益。
他们特别替我们做了一个简报，就是说怎么样利用 Facebook 在选战。那我们也觉得，他们对台湾的选战有他们的观察，非常的有趣哦。那有些建议我们会带回去好好的思考一下。
脸书高层也传授小英选战秘技，强调脸书发文内容得原汁原味才行。随着社群媒体的普及，网络战理所当然成为选战重要的一环。候选人如何活用网络出奇制胜，成功贴近选民的心，更是成败关键。UDN TV 黄涵毅综合报道。
我们今天特别来关心网络革命对于政治的影响。摄影棚今天特别邀请到qimila 的创办人 Stephen Cliff 来跟我们共同讨论。Welcome, Steve, to be on our show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
To begin with, what got you interested and started the campaign for e-democracy?
Well, in 1994, I helped create the world's very first election website. But it wasn't just 1994, right? So I had been a young political leader in the Democratic Party in Minnesota, and I had a slogan. It was take action, share power. Take action, share power. And when it came to the internet, when I got on the internet as a student, I was amazed. It's 1993.
It's pretty young at that time.
Yeah, I was 20. I was like 20-something years old.
And also for the internet history, it's very young at that time.
That's right. I mean, 2%, 3% were on the internet, very early days. And I decided after exploring, many late nights, amazed by this technology, that it would be one of the most powerful mediums in politics ever. And what it did is it provided access to information on demand from anywhere. And it also inspired me that people could connect in groups online. And so you combine my passion for democracy, for sharing power and getting people involved, with now the internet was, I thought, a tremendous tool for empowerment.
I understand at that time you were also getting the campaign to help people get elected. At that time, there's a professional wrestler, Jesse Ventura.
Jesse the Body Ventura. That's how he goes. Yes.
And you, you were involved in the campaign to help him elected as a governor. I mean, for professional wrestler to become a governor, it's a huge leap for him. How do you do that?
Well, so this website, edemocracy.org, we had an online candidate debate. Now, I was actually neutral in the campaign, but we were the first organization, the NGO, that said, Jesse Ventura deserves to have a seat in our debate. So we said, yes, he can be part of this debate online. He did very well. And then they started inviting him on to the TV debates and other debates. He ended up winning the election because he used the internet. His campaign, his supporters, they went around the media. The media didn't take him seriously. They were able to get the message around. And the key thing, too, he was a very independent voice, right? He had lots of simple things to say, and he could say them well. And so it really resonated with people. And you see that with Obama as well, kind of, a new voice, hope, that kind of thing. And you've had other candidates as well that, have a special thing with the internet.
Jesse is running as an independent candidate, is he?
That's right. So he was an independent candidate and came from nowhere to win as governor in 1998. It was.
So it's like it's a new way of campaigning that he is circumventing a lot of old political machine, the old media, those kind of things.
So he drove a bus all around the state. Actually an RV, a camper van. And so he drove around the state, and people would call up and say, Jesse, bring your bus to our town. And his volunteers would say, they'd send an email back, and they would say, here are the top 10 tips for how to organize a rally. So you had everyday citizens in the matter of hours organizing their first rally, right? You know, they would call the media. They weren't political people, right? So it really gave a voice for a whole new cross-section of basically everyday Minnesotans to get involved. And it was quite inspirational for many. But, you know, as it turned out, he was an okay governor, you know, and he did a pretty good job. But I actually wish that he had been a little more actually radical with opening up government. He could have done a little bit better job with that, but it was definitely a breath of fresh air.
When I heard about this, I was in the States. I thought that, oh, there must be a lot of WrestleMania in Minnesota.
So I went to, that night, I went to the Democratic Party's party event, Republican, and then I ended at the Independence Party.
Right.
And they were body surfing. You know, they would jump into the crowd and ride the wave. I mean, it was a night of history, right?
Okay.
I mean, he got on TV and he said, "We shocked the world," and many Minnesotans were very shocked because no one expected that outcome.
Looking back, since that time till now, when you look at the political campaign, you'll find out that a lot of online technique have been used to how to targeting those voters who those voters are really interested in certain topic that you can aim more precisely.
Right.
So do you think that's a good thing or bad thing? I mean, nowadays we are being very precisely targeted. They know what we are concerning about, and they try to bring out and motivate us. So, do you think that's good for democracy, or in a way that that nowadays voters are pretty vulnerable these days?
Well, we go to grocery stores, we have thousands of choices, right? And there's all these different things that kind of might interest us in one product or another. I think as voters, as citizens, we need to be given the credit we can work through. And obviously, yes, there's plenty of propaganda out there, but in general, I'm not worried about, they call it micro-targeting, right? that we will somehow be told one story that is completely different from one candidate that they'll tell someone else. Like, so because basically all I have to do is keep a copy of it, right? And sort of say, well, you told the senior citizens that you were going to, you know, save Social Security, and you told the young people that you were going to cut it, you know, and well, that would definitely blow up in your face.
Right.
The other thing that's really interesting is that who watches live TV anymore, right? And so, like the older generation, my mother-in-law, for example, she complains and complains about all the negative TV ads, and it really depresses her, you know, how negative that is. Well, I don't see live TV. I mean, everything I watch is on demand. During the political season, I actually have to sort of like go out and find the ads on YouTube to see what, you know, the older generations are seeing. So what I think we will see is more video ads on YouTube, more video ads on Facebook, and so it'll be interesting to see, you know, how well targeted those are. Unfortunately, a lot of the ads will basically be piled on the people who are actually undecided. So for those of you who are more political and maybe the political parties know which way you're going to vote, you might say, oh, there's not much advertising going on, because most of it will be focused on the people who haven't quite made up their minds.
United States is pretty much a mature democracy. From your point of view, what kind of problems are there in this mature political system, and how is your e-democracy can help solving those problems?
So, while we may have a constitution, very important, freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, we have the rule of law, all sorts of rights, my belief is that every generation has to build democracy for themselves. And they need to do that with the tools of their time, because the culture of democracy is as important as the laws, if you will. And so one thing about the internet and digital, and it makes me hopeful, is that while people are very cynical, we have a lot of negative campaigning, we have a lot of more money in politics in a way that really gets people concerned, we have the opportunity to shape greater openness. We can work with governments to have them provide better services, to give us information on a timely basis. It's like many of us care about our neighborhoods, we care about our local communities, and so as more and more information is shared with us in a timely way, there's a new decision being taken, and it affects you. If you can know when things are going to happen, then your trust in government will increase because your feedback can go into government before the decision is taken. So as citizens, we need to basically encourage government to invest in democracy in terms of sharing information so that we can be not only be informed, but also then provide input when it matters.
So voting would not be the only way you participate in politics then?
Well, that's right. So like voting to me is kind of the white bread of democracy, you know? And so you got to have it, but it's the sandwich in the middle, all the different layers and the vegetables and the meats, right? So the key for me is that you obviously want a good sandwich, right? You want to have the strong bread, so you need as many voters as possible. But ultimately, the democracy starts on election day. Right? And so like one of the things I really encourage, if you're involved with using, say, social media with an election campaign and you gather lots of email addresses or Facebook likes and the like, don't turn it off after the election. Figure out how to engage people on the issues that they connected with you on and say, okay, now here's how we're going to make a change on this. Here's how we're going to get a new law passed. Or better yet, in my view, here's how we can take action in our local communities to clean up our environment or help take care of seniors or increase the education levels of our children because we now volunteer for reading programs, right? And so I think there's a lot of direct action that could come after the voting is taken.
That also including you want to hold the people you elected accountable.
Well, that's right. And so one thing I think is really important is greater access to government, not just budget information, like how they propose to spend money, but spending information. Louisville, Kentucky has the digital checkbook. And you can actually see, all the checks that are being written, in digital format, and to whom. And so like people are often very interested, well, who has the contract with the government? Who's the consultant? How many pencils are they buying? And so the more people can see how government are spending money, the more transparent, and the more we can trust that decisions will be made more responsibly because we or the media can look through the information much more quickly.
Okay, in the next section, we'll talk about how, if you are interested in politics, how can you and your friend can get together as a group, and what's your advice on how can they participate in politics? 我们等一下回来，我们特别来谈，如果要有一个团体，希望能够更进一步的参与政治的话，应该可以怎么样做？我们等一下再跟 Stephen Cliff 来谈。继续来跟eDemocracy 的创办人 Stephen Cliff 来谈。Stephen, I was talking. If you want to advise a social group when they want to participate in politics, yesterday in the American Center, there's a lot of representatives from the social group coming over. What would the three most important things you want to remind them or want to suggest to them?
Well, with social media, the three things. One is organize. Number two is engage, and number three is to get friendly. And so first, organize. So it's really, really important to think about how you do outreach online one by one to get the people who support your cause or support your mission to like your Facebook page, to sign up for your email newsletter, to share their mobile number for texting, and to really get them connected so that you as an organization can contact them about what's new and inform them about your activities. With engage, this is a little more difficult. So a lot of organizations say, well, we have our positions, we're come to our rally, and they often aren't as open to democracy within their organizations, if you will. Well, in social media, there's a whole generation of people, an engagement generation, that expect to have a greater say. So how you actually use social media to engage your supporters as an organization, to have debates, to have discussions, to determine priorities together. In some cases now that might mean going onto a new web system like one called Lumio out of New Zealand, where they have designed it to help you make deliberative decision making in small private groups. I think that can be very powerful. And the third is get friendly. And I discovered reading up on Wikipedia, a very good source, that you had over 11,000 local elected officials elected in last November. And so at the meeting yesterday at the American Center, I said, all right, let's leave this meeting and go out and let's get friendly. Right. Everyone here needs to friend at least one of their local elected officials. Right. And I think it's really important to remember that they're people too. And that if we begin going online, everyone who's watching this show should go online. I'm not. Maybe find out. We got to find out what the website is, so they can look up how to contact their local elected official. Search for them on Facebook. Become their friends, not just their pages. Become their friend. You know. And then one of the things that happens in Minneapolis now is that the elected officials will actually ask questions of the public, their friends, about all sorts of issues. The average age of these new council members is 32 years old, so we had a bunch of young ones elected. Well, you can be 45 or 55, or my grandmother's 91. She's on Facebook. She's not an elected official, but we can certainly have older elected officials use Facebook to talk to their constituents at the local level in particular.
One of the things you're talking about is that online is a virtual community, but you emphasize that it's very important that online should combine with the actual community. That would be more effective. Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I fundamentally believe in people. I also believe in cats. And here's why, all right? So at the local level and the online forums that we create, cats get lost all of the time. And why do people join these online forums? Because they love their cats. They join, and suddenly now they're part of this group. I'm joking here, of course, but the whole idea is that how do you connect local people? You connect them based on things that matter to them.
Okay.
So by finding your lost pet, by having a discussion about local crime, or about the quality of local schools, suddenly now you're involved in a two-way dialogue about place. So normally when you connect online, it's with friends and family, or maybe you have maybe you're into sailing, or you're into some kind of a hobby, or you have a certain disease that only a few people have.
Like that,
Yeah, people join based on those niches. But when do you join with people you disagree with, right? Or people who have different opinions? Well, you'll do it at the local level in your neighborhood or in your district, right? You know, let's just say 6 blocks of or a large apartment complex, right? Because you share the common interest in clean environment, calm traffic, places for your children to play. And so that's where I've seen the most dramatic. I have over 1,000 of my neighbors, 30% of households in my neighborhood talking every day about local issues. And here's the last thing, how this connects to democracy. That local elected official goes, oh my gosh, those are my voters. So when I mean, national dialogue is very important. I know in Taiwan I've heard lots about national politics. Everything is national. But ultimately, you know, representatives represent a certain area often, right? And so if we create more spaces online within a district, then they can I call it tapping the pulse.
Right.
And I like right now, Facebook is a great platform for this. There's a little button called Create Groups. So go, you know, hopefully your watchers will go create a group for their neighborhood. Right, just do it right now. Just in your small town, your village. Just go there, create a group, name it, and then share it. And then and that way you can experience, you know, and I know that they already exist in parts of Taiwan. And then you can tell the rest of the world the story of how local democracy changed national democracy, right? I mean, that's my whole view, is that if we don't have a foundation of grassroots democracy, how can we expect to sustain strong national democracy?
Another thing you talk about is that for the group want to interest in politics, it's very important to have agenda setting capability.
Yes.
That means that after you have a discussion online, you have created a consensus, you think what is important for this new agenda, and then you gradually move up your influence through different kind of social media, and then try to get to politician or mass media, and then let this agenda to be their agenda as well. Could you talk a little bit about this?
Well, absolutely. So in the online town hall that eDemocracy hosts in Minneapolis, a big city of Minnesota, there was a discussion about crows and West Nile virus. So the crows bring in West Nile virus. And in the winter, there were thousands of crows. They call it a murder of crows, all gathered together. And people were like, you know, with West Nile, is this a health concern? And what was interesting was that the discussion started because someone started it, and then the newspaper did a story on it. They interviewed many of the people who were on the forum, and then they went out and found other experts to talk about, you know, that this wasn't a health risk, you know, so to speak, you know. And so it was really interesting because that's that direct connection between dialogue online, and then the media deciding, hey, this is a story. You know, and journalists, you know, you guys are spread pretty thin these days, right? In many places, you know, the internet is causing some trouble here and there, right?
But I thought
and so finding good sources online, you know, the online spaces are a great way to find good sources.
But I thought the mass media sometimes is contradictory with the online discussion, meaning that sometimes newspaper will feel that it's been left out, the newspaper is going to die, I mean, compared with the online discussion. But you're saying it's complementary with each
Well,
other.
that's right. I mean, so it's interesting that journalists have been more likely to use our independent forums for story ideas than their own commenting. And I don't know what commenting is like on newspapers, but in the United States, much of the commenting is anonymous on newspapers. And I think the quality is often some of the worst on the internet. So when you have names, real names, in a safe democracy, with friends and family, people are generally more civil. The Huffington Post, a major news website in the U.S., they shifted from aliases or anonymous posting to Facebook. And while they had fewer postings by flamers, they had a tremendous increase in quality. Now, the challenge is that does that mean that there are more or less viewers? Because obviously, the more readers you have of sometimes hate-filled flaming, does that generate more money for you or not? And so this is an issue that I think the traditional media, as they're online, they are a much more trusted convener than, in terms of getting people across the political spectrum together. So I think they could raise the quality, and hopefully they can make a buck too. You know, that would be good through advertising. Yeah.
Okay, I want to move to what kind of role can the government play? You mentioned that the open government is very important. How is it so? I mean, why the open government is so important for e-democracy?
So I didn't mention earlier, but when I worked with e-democracy, that was a volunteer. I was citizen by night, is what I heard, but I worked in government. I was government by day. I actually helped create the portal for the state of Minnesota, the first web page. So I'm very passionate about government delivering direct service, direct democracy in terms of information, right, and involving people from that vital position of we are the government and we're here to help you, right, and we have information for you. And one of the key ways to build trust is to be a reliable, stable source of information. So when an earthquake hits, or in Minnesota's case, it would be a tornado or a flood, you know, we of course can rely on the government for information and, you know, be able to connect with that. Now, open government takes it, pushes it out even further. So there's a whole movement. There's a group called Code for America. There's a group called the Sunlight Foundation. Here in Taiwan, there's GovZero. There's Code for Tomorrow. There's different projects that people have created to try to use technology. They call it civic technology to get more data from government, some more information that can be used and reused. And so, like, I think one example in Taiwan is they've created enhanced maps of where air pollution is. You know, and so the more governments can make more data available. You can go to data.gov in the United States and see all these different data sets. It can support all kinds of innovation. And we don't have to, I mean, obviously, I love it when government can directly do a great job themselves, having worked in government. But there are times where it's better for government to make the data available and let the marketplace innovate. You know, help startups basically build creative ways of using this information from government to serve the people.
But sometimes there's a tension between people and government. The government is afraid to release so many data to hide its waste or corruption or all kinds of things. But you are suggesting that the only way you can clarify yourself is to open up and provide more data.
I mean, two models. One is basically a major scandal happens. And in order to regain the trust of the public, the government will pass a new law requiring more transparency about gifts given to politicians or how donations are brought into campaigns. And that's fine. And so if you're an advocate who wants to have more open government, get ready, wait for the scandal, and then pounce, right? Or, and this is what other governments are beginning to say, well, you know, things are changing. People's expectations are moving. And so we need to begin this thing called the Open Government Partnership. Over 65 nations have joined this. And I know there's some interest in Taiwan on this network. And the key is this, is creating commitments and then having plans of action to release more data, to make things more open. But I will tell you, I'm worried. I'm worried about what happens with the next administration, Republican or Democrat for president. I don't know if it matters, because a lot of what the U.S. has built is executive orders and more voluntary.
Okay.
And so we need to actually build into our laws, the rule of law, some of the requirements around open government. And so we have the Freedom of Information Acts in a lot of countries. So what's the Digital Democracy Act, or what's the Digital Accountability Act? So I need to be thinking very seriously about, spending data needs to be released in this way, or, information about the courts needs to be, in open formats. I mean, who knows what different thing you might require, but I will say that if anything that's optional is built on sand, and and can be washed away. And so we need to think a lot more about what are the things that work with open government and that we actually want to have be required. And also we want governments to spend money on it, right? And this is the thing, is that when you put a dollar figure to the web services required to make government more open, maybe some things will be too expensive. Other things will be like, wow, that doesn't cost very much, and let's get that out there.
Lastly, I want to ask you about how can the e-democracy can be applied in the decision-making process. I'm meaning a very concrete one.
Yep.
We are seeing a lot of referendum being done. Whenever there's an election, there will still a bill for referendum, like in California or other countries. In Switzerland, there's also a lot of referendum. Is it possible that we can do e-voting? Just like our new mayor had proposed, that people can make a vote online to decide the things that are most care about. Is that a way that you can save costs and making decisions right away, or there's a lot of downside of it?
Well, the number one thing anyone who's been involved in an election information website finds out is that the public goes there the last 2 days of the election.
Okay.
Right? And so the number one thing the internet can do first is promote more informed voting. And so instead of I-voting, but more informed voting. So whether you're voting on a piece of paper, voting by mail, going to a polling place, or voting online, we need a far richer and useful collection of information about candidates, about referendums, so that we can begin on demand, when we want the information, look through the candidates, get information, and I think that is a first step. Now, governments like Estonia, a country of about 2 million people in the Baltic region of Europe, they now have something like 25% of people who vote online. They have national identity cards with a chip on it, and they plug it into their computer, so they have a very secure system. And in the United States, we've had lots of criticisms about electronic voting, even electronic voting machines, because the concern was, where's the paper trail? And the issue is that I believe someday, or maybe even today in Estonia and parts of Switzerland, they have secure online voting systems. I'm hopeful, right? But the question is, will the people trust it? So even if it's secure, if the people don't trust it, I'd be concerned about switching to all digital, because if suddenly the only way to have a recount is to just push the button, and you can't actually go through a digital copy of each vote, if you need a print all function where you can just print them out off the paper. Now let's just count them ourselves and see how it compares. People, trust is so important. So don't get it wrong, because if you get it wrong, then people will never vote online, and I think we should have that option eventually. Yeah.
I think your cautious is right, but we are seeing so many issues that we are desperately want to know what's the general opinion is.
Right.
It's not only on opinion poll, but rather the actual voting for like legalized marijuana is one thing, or there's a legalized same-sex marriage. That's another. You are doing state by state, but.
Right.
When to put out this decision for the people to decide is something. If there's more decision we have to make, e-voting may be a relatively cheap and efficient way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, and the question is if you can vote more cheaply, should you vote more often, right? Or if you want more people to vote, even though you vote once every 4 years or once every 2 years, do you want to have 20 questions? And so, like in Oregon. The state of Oregon, they have a voter guide this thick, right? And it's online too. And so because they end up having like 20 or 30 referendums at times, and so there's a law of diminishing returns, meaning if there's 2 or 3 issues, you can have a good debate. But if there's like 30 issues, and a lot of the issue is a lot of interest groups then basically try to go that route in order to change the laws in their favor, and then they spend a lot of money, and so there's issues. But I would say there's a step before that, right? governments could do a lot more to engage the public to gather feedback. In fact, the state of Queensland down in Australia has had a whole tradition of setting up a website where you could find about all sorts of consultations, where you could read various draft documents and answer surveys. And the key thing is the more governments put into asking good questions to gather feedback when it actually matters, right? You know, not just a show at the end and say, oh, and then 90% of people said they like our plan, but when you don't have your plan fully formed, that's when you want to ask your input. And do various online surveys and use different tools based on your strategies to gather input to improve the quality of the decision. It may not be a mass exercise, but by involving a lot of stakeholders, key people, and organizations in an open way, you can make better decisions.
We'll talk something that this democracy is not happening in some of the difficult situations, like dictatorial countries. Or we'll put example and ask Stephen's opinion on ISO. How are they recruiting their people through internet? 我们等下回来最后一段，我们来谈不管是在ISIL 它在吸收成员，或者是在一些独裁的国家，怎么样来做 e-democracy？ 我们等下回来。欢迎回到节目的现场。IS 伊斯兰国在叙利亚跟伊拉克以惊人的速度崛起，善用网络进行恐怖宣传，在全球大肆招募圣战士，更是伊斯兰国急速扩张的原因之一。面对伊斯兰国来势汹汹，西方各国也严阵以待，密切监控恐怖组织在网络上的一举一动。请看我们报道。
They are the soldiers of Allah. Their honor is in jihad.
纯正的英语口音、流畅的剪辑技术，恐怖组织 IS 伊斯兰国又在网络公布最新宣传片。残暴的处决方式已经成为伊斯兰国恐吓全球的一贯手法。
ISIS understands very well that in order for an act of terrorism to be effective, it needs to actually terrorize people.
看准网络散布广、流传快的特性，伊斯兰国渗透脸书、推特等社群媒体，以前所未见的宣传手法招募外国圣战士参战。更扯的是，网络上竟然还有贩卖伊斯兰国的周边商品。
They're not just on websites; they're also being spread through social media. More than anything on Facebook, not just one page, but multiple pages. We see merchandise like the one that you're seeing, the T-shirt that you're seeing right now on your screen, being sold over Facebook for just about $10. Now, the whole goal of this, when ISIS does do this, it's to look cool. They want to have the effect of looking cool to people to try and encourage them to join.
拜网际网络之赐，伊斯兰国影响力大增。西方媒体统计，目前已成功吸引上千名出生在欧美国家的伊斯兰信徒加入圣战，其中美国籍约有数十人，法国籍大概有300人，英国籍则是有500人。西方国家万没想到，引以为傲的网络科技，竟成为伊斯兰国发动恐怖攻击的利器。为了铲除伊斯兰国，美方也利用网络搜集情资，正面迎击。日前 ，IS 成员在叙利亚和伊拉克总部前自拍打卡，上传社交媒体，无意间泄露了行踪。美军辨识后，短22小时内迅速出击，用3枚飞弹把 IS 总部轰掉，夷为平地，反将伊斯兰国一军。为了一举歼灭 IS， 各国政府上紧发条监控恐怖组织的一举一动，双方叠对叠，也宣告网络攻防战正式开打。UDN TV 黄涵义综合报道。
我们继续来跟 Stephen Cliff 先生来做访谈。Stephen, as you know, that IS have been very successful in mobilizing its followers, and what is the secret of their success, and how can we counter them, especially on the internet?
Well, so the secret of the success is to convince us that they've, I guess, done a good job with social media. Well, obviously, because they're doing an effective job of gathering territory or having gathered territory in Syria and Iraq, it seems like it must be pretty serious, right? And yes, those numbers, I mean, in Minneapolis, we've had that few dozen they referred to in the United States. I mean, many of them came from Minneapolis, all right? And, you know, people I know have known people who have gone really from the Somali community. There's some amazing young Somali leaders in the community. But I will say that just because social media is sort of almost like an easy thing to blame, to be honest, right? You know, and it's very dramatic, and it makes good television, and it is a problem, and we need to counter it. We need to counter it. But there are millions and millions and millions and millions of people who are far more disgusted by what they see than inspired to think that somehow you know, a version of Grand Theft Auto converted you know, for the jihadist fight is somehow like convincing you know, thousands of young people to join. The problem is that if it convinces just 1 or 10 to join, it is a real problem. But obviously we need to counter that, you know, with other efforts on social media to educate the right people about the atrocities that are occurring.
Is it a good idea just shutting them down on the web page?
So I think it's a cat and mouse kind of game, if you will, and a lot of times it's the actual internet service provider. Once the person who owns the website finds out that an ISIS-related website is on their service, they often will shut them down, or the government will work to shut them down. But I mean, I'm not a security expert, right? But you know, I'm interested in honey, right? And how you might create sites where you could gather more intelligence about these efforts, right? And so if you actually created, I mean, if I were the CIA or someone, I'd start creating some fake ISIS websites and figure out where's the traffic coming from, you know, who's signing up, you know, and begin to make it less trustworthy, right? So if you could just basically undermine the trust, you know, and sort of flip it around, I think there might be some potential there.
We talk about how do we do e-democracy in democratic countries, but how do you do it in undemocratic, even dictatorial countries like North Korea, for instance? They are shutting down all the outside connection, or even some of the countries like China. You're seeing on the one hand they are pretty open up, but they are censored within the internet. They are building up firewalls, so on and so forth. How do you address to that?
There's a community globally called Liberation Tech, and you could Google it, Liberation Tech, where people who are working to fight censorship, working to help protect dissidents in countries like China and other places where people really want to use these tools to be more free or be more democratic, but the fear of retribution. You know, in Minnesota, if I say something online that's a little bit too political, if you will, my friends might think I'm a little funny, if you will. But in other countries, you know, you could get thrown in jail, right? And so I come from a very safe democracy, and so it's hard for me to imagine what it would be like. But I also have a lot of faith in this new medium, in that there are some fundamental natures to how people use it to share information. So, you know, if you recall in mainland China when they had the big earthquake, like I don't know, it's like 10 years ago, and the response, people weren't happy with it. They used bulletin boards to complain a lot. And I really think that, you know, you're going to see and continue to see more of that. And the question will be, you know, can we rally for and protect those that ultimately pay a price for exercising, you know, speech, if you will, in more abusive countries. It's a big concern.
We also seen the example of the cruise ship tipping over at Yangtze River. There's a lot of discussion online and how criticizing how the government deal with this kind of things. And this kind of emotion is very genuine. I also like to ask you about the Arab Spring. That is also one of the examples show to how powerful the new media had been.
Well, I mean, one of the key things was the ability for years for people in social media, blogging circles, that it built up networks, sort of pro-democracy networks. And then when the time came for a giant protest, if you will, they knew each other. And so there's a lot of behind-the-scenes online networking that happened. And then the ability then to use you know, these tools to gather people, to send them home, to spread the word globally, very important, very important. However, one caution that I would have is that the tools to organize for a protest, you know, that energy isn't often converted into then what to do when the protest is over. And so I have a really strong interest in how do we, like in Tunisia, where there's sort of a greater success story in terms of democratization, what could we do with social media to support more democracy building, like at the parliamentary level? So a member of parliament now could interact with their constituents. Hey, you could do that in Egypt as well, right? You know, I mean, there's one neighborhood that I found in Cairo where they created an online community network, and thinking about how geography, like I mentioned, neighbors getting together, I think a whole strategy is needed to work with, activists in those countries to create public spaces online groups that work their way down so that Tahrir Square isn't just one giant square that's nationwide, but there are local virtual Tahrir Squares in every part of a country.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, when people talk about the new media and Arab Spring, people always talk about revolution. How do you start a revolution? Not about what happened after the revolution.
Yeah, my thing is how do we start the evolution, right?
Evolution.
And really, and a lot of that comes down to, we know that having like hashtags, I know that people like do pound or hash and then like Black Lives Matter, right? That's a big hashtag in the United States related to police and brutality and the like. And so, as people create hashtags they can gather up, well then once they do that, how do they go to the next step and sort of say, well, Black Lives Matters Minnesota, and thinking about how you can add geographic components to various hashtags is a way to have instant, then more localized online exchange, and it's something that we don't see too much of. We saw a little bit with the big typhoon, the wave that hit Japan.
Tsunami.
The tsunami, people began to do some local hashtags and local websites in different neighborhoods, and I think those kinds of particularly like with crises like it hit a large area, we could see a lot more of that localized online response.
Thank you very much, Stephen,
for
coming to our show and tell us a lot of things that is what had happened and what will be happen in the future. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
我们等一下来看今天还有哪些重要的国际消息。
希腊最近几天出现各种示威抗议活动，先有要求政府无论如何都要留在欧元区的声浪出现，而在希腊与国际债权人开会的前一天，又有民众走上街头，表达他们反对准结、不要让步的立场。内外交迫的希腊政府赶在会议前再推新的改革方案，避免谈判再次破局。据了解，希腊政府有准备要考虑像是取消劳工及资方的所得税免税额，缩小退休金削减幅度，对中高收入人士增税，并且对净收入超过50万欧元的公司开征新税等等。希腊财长瓦鲁法基斯表示，他们正朝向达成协议的目标迈进。根据英国《卫报》的报道，如果希腊让步，债权人考虑展延纾困6个月，并且将救援资金增加到180亿欧元。但要是欧盟经济峰会没有结果，就要看25、26号另外一场欧盟28个会员国的高峰会还有没有时间讨论希腊债务危机。如果最后还是无功而返，到了30号要偿还16亿欧元的大限来临时 ，IMF 可不会再给希腊留下任何的情面。
22号是大陆广西玉林市1年1度的夏至荔枝狗肉节，当地的民众在周末提前庆祝，摆满了一整桌的菜肴，大口开心的品尝荔枝配狗肉，而且吃得津津有味。但是吃狗肉的行为让爱狗人士抗议，特别还前往当地去理论，不料反倒被杀狗的商人呛声：“
你吃什么东西是各种各样的文化？你为什么你们吃火鸡的？”要强迫我们不能够吃狗肉。
玉林街上随处都可看到待宰被卖的小狗，有的眼神还充满了惶恐和绝望。动保人士在当地能救一只是一只。根据估计，在玉林每年约有10万只小狗被吃下肚，尤其在夏至时节，吃狗肉配荔枝是民众认为的养生之道。近年来，狗肉节引起轩然大波。玉林市政府去年表明，没有举办过任何形式的狗肉节活动，全都是民间商业行为，但政府对于吃狗肉一事也没有明文禁止。纵使现在政府跟摊商划清界限，还是抵挡不住动保团体的抗议声浪。
类似 U-Bike 的公共脚踏车系统，因为停放站众多，再加上支付方便，广受欢迎，民众也可省下买脚踏车的钱。不过德国更先进了，他们现在有汽车共享系统。 民众可随时随地付费开车，还能省去买车的费用、油钱、保险费以及停车位等难题。汽车共享系统起源于瑞士，但在德国壮大。目前德国共有140家营运商，提供15000辆车，约有100万名使用者。其中获得车商 BMW 投资的 Drive Now 于2011年成立，公司对未来的发展是相当乐观。业者透露，不想买车的年轻人越来越多，为汽车共享提供市场，而汽车制造商对系统商的大力支持，也降低了不少成本。因为汽车商希望使用者在享受驾驶的过程会兴起买车的念头，政府则希望汽车共享能够进一步改善城市环境和空间。汽车共享系统的确达到环保和减少私家车的目标，也改善了民众在城市的生活机能。
好莱坞女星安杰丽娜·裘丽20号以联合国难民署特使的身份造访土耳其，探视当地的叙利亚难民营。裘丽这次更难得带着9岁女儿夏罗同行。一抵达难民营，裘丽就受到群众热烈欢迎，民众开心的一涌而上，把她团团包围。但裘丽毫无巨型架子，和大家亲切互动寒暄。6月20号是世界难民日，裘丽这次特地拜访土耳其，就是希望外界能更关心日益严重的国际难民问题。除了和联合国官员一起探访难民营，裘丽也和土耳其总统厄多刚会面。联合国最新公布的数据指出，因战火造成的难民数量已经逼近6000万人，创历史新高。更可怕的是，儿童竟然占了难民总数的1半。然而，面对大批难民颠沛流离，各国政府却互踢皮球，不愿承担。裘丽因此呼吁国际间应采取更多行动来救助难民。裘丽长期关注难民问题，除了主动为难民发声，更希望借由自己的影响力，重新唤起全球对难民议题的关注。
今天谢谢您收看《全球瞭望》，我们明天见。